Right, and let's move on to our introduction topic then, even though we've done Elliot first. And let's talk about the Book of Boba Fett. Now, we have all seen the first 6 episodes, but I think it is only fair to our listeners to stick to the first 5. You think, guys? I think that's fair to say?
By the time we get this out, it'd be old news. The show would have probably finished.
Possibly. Right, well, if anybody doesn't want to hear Book of Boba Fett and potential spoilers, I suggest you skip ahead. But let's move on to this topic now. So, episode 6 was released today. I obviously had picked up on all the hype that everyone was saying. It was amazing. It was awesome. I actually have really enjoyed the Book of Boba Fett so far. I'm not too sure why we needed a full Mandalorian episode. Again, in today's episode, Boba Fett didn't even appear in it at all, the second episode. So I'm kind of thinking,
he was in it briefly, Richard?
Now thinking about it, he was in it very briefly. So now I'm thinking, are they doing like what Marvel have done with all these crossovers with Vader down and, Dr. Aphra getting pulled across into crossovers? It seems that way to me. So once I had a think about it, it's always in the back of my mind that Book of Boba Fett is an EU story. That's what it is. It's a EU story that's on TV. If this was in comic, if this was in novel format, it would just be another one of the great stories that's out there. I've enjoyed every single episode so far. Really loved it. Yes, there's been some lows, of course there has, but there's been plenty of highs too. So where am I going to go first? I'm going to go first probably over to Jason. So Jason, the Book of Boba Fett, 6 episodes so far. What have been your highs and lows?
I've been loving it. The highs I get. I mean, I just love the whole backstory of finding out how Boba Fett got out of the Sarlacc pit. Obviously, I think the whole treatment of the Tusken Raiders in the early episodes, because they've always been shown in a very bad light in the Star Wars universe, was absolutely fantastic. Obviously, seeing the Mandalorian unexpectedly in episode 5 was fantastic, and then obviously seeing Baby Yoda and the new deep fake guy who's been doing Luke Skywalker, which looked absolutely awesome in episode 6, which we saw today. The low sides, I don't think the Jetson gang or the Biff Tannen kind of skateboard kids worked particularly well. That episode had them doing this chase through Mos Espa, and all the little coloured bikes look really out of place in the Star Wars universe, and they were obviously travelling so slowly. I wasn't too keen on that. I'm loving the new take on Rancor. So Rancor is essentially a pet dog, and we've seen a little glimpse of that. But I think what we're going to see in the finale next week is a Baby Yoda versus Baby Rancor face-off. How interesting would that be? And on that bombshell, over to someone else.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see that too much, Jason, but you never know. It'll probably be in a comic somewhere, maybe Star Wars Infinities. Pete, I'm going to come to you next. And there's been quite a bit of criticism online about Boba Fett and his portrayal, and I've had a long think about this, and it's part of what Grant has been posting on. I think he's been posting this on the Generation Skywalker pages, but it adds back to something else I'm thinking of. Now, we had a discussion ages ago about why Boba Fett wasn't the Mandalorian, and they came up with a new character of the Mandalorian. And Grant had posted, as various others have as well, is the problem that the Mandalorian is Fett, and Fett is now a different character. But it hasn't really started now. Fett is a different character. It goes all the way back to Attack of the Clones, and the backstory that George came out. So is it the fact that Jon Favreau in particular has looked at, what George Lucas did with the Attack of Clones of Boba Fett, which basically wiped out every single one of our, childhood imagination stories that we had for Fett, and he's just taken that and pushed it. But equally, he's recognised the fact that there needs to be a Boba Fett kind of character out there, and therefore has made the Mandalorian that character. So therefore, in an ideal situation, yes, the Mandalorian should have been Boba, but did Attack of the Clones stop that from happening?
Yeah, I think I think a lot of the problem Disney seems to have with the Star Wars kind of fandom, the Star Wars, I don't say problem, but they want to create their own kind of Star Wars universe as such. I think that's why they knocked the EU on the head to an extent, because there was an existing bunch of stories which had already been told. And we get this with people saying, I want I want them to do the Dark Empire show, but we've had that story. That story's been done, so it would be a bit daft to just redo a story in kind of live action. You'd probably just bore people to death because you can go and find out what happens at the end. As fun as it would be, but they are trying to create their own thing, and I think it is. I think it is very true. I think lots of people have said it. They've got this Mandalore kind of story they had in Clone Wars. They want to investigate it. The Boba Fett stuff's been done to death, and we all know what he looks like. We all know, the story of it. Is it a fascinating character enough to drive films? Yes, it probably would be. But again, you'd be going over old ground with EU territory. So why not, create your own, lore, your own stories with this Mandalorian character? And I still don't really know why they actually brought Boba Fett into the whole thing, really. I mean, if they had the series, they brought in this Boba Fett dressed as a Tusken Raider into the show. I think they might look back in it and see it as a bit of a mistake, because I think the Mandalorian could have just been its own show without ever having to touch on on Boba Fett. I don't think they need, but they have done. And I think what people have got to kind of probably look at is the show, and I've been saying this the last couple of days, that the show is the Mandalorian, and the Book of Boba Fett is a story within the Mandoverse, or within the Mandalorian universe. And he is in there. It is part of the show. I don't think they've really thought too much of a story idea outside of what happens to Boba Fett after he gets out the Sarlacc pit, which obviously everyone wanted to see, been asked that question. And when you think of the whole plot really of Boba Fett's show, it's really him getting out the Sarlacc pit, him being quite annoyed, him taking over Jabba the Hutt's thing, and then we're going to have a big fight. And that's it. That's the whole show. But it is, in typical Star Wars fashion, sometimes the best stories, we've got all this crazy stuff going on, all these side characters, all these nods to old things. The last 2 episodes of Boba Fett has been a Mandalorian show where we've seen what has happened to Mandalorian, during this period. Remember, it is his show still. And we are obviously going to get this big fight at the end where I guess everyone's going to turn up. I mean, I'm assuming that Grogu's going to choose the Mandalorian path, and maybe the Mandalorian is about him. Maybe he's the Mandalorian. Has everyone thought about that he could be the Mandalorian? But overall as a show, it's just daft Star Wars, which is just great fun. I mean, everything has a reason. I think if they want to kind of make it a bit better, I think maybe in the future kind of tone down the amount of directors they're having on everything. I think that's why we've got quite a lot of choppy kind of episodes where, the first 3 episodes were probably, I wouldn't be surprised if we find out that the first 3 episodes were actually 2 episodes, and they've divided them up a little bit and they've chopped bits around, and we've actually had a bit of inconsistency with the storytelling. And I think, things like when Boba Fett went to get his armor from the Sarlacc pit, we had a lot of people talking about, why would he go back there when obviously his armor was taken? Now, we've had a long period of time where he's been playing the Tuskens, but that could have been solved a little bit. Script writing could have just been, hey, I need to get my armor back. Where is your armor? The last time I think I had it was near the Sarlacc pit, and that would have just solved so many issues with people going, why is he gone back there? It was robbed by someone. It was robbed by Jawas, and the little tiny little additions would have made it really fantastic. But overall, it's Star Wars. I'll watch it. Rich. I don't care. It's got Rancors in it. We've had so many vintage nods, and I think in some ways it's probably been done deliberately. It's not the Boba Fett show has not been the most strongest storyline, but the character is the strong storyline more than the actual story.
Yeah, strong prequel nods as well, which is nice to see.
Well, it's nods to everything, Rich. To be fair, there's been nods to absolutely everything. There's been, obviously it's Dave Filoni's kind of baby. He's brought in so many elements from the Clone Wars and, things that he's worked on. Like the Cad Bane turn up. These are all his kind of babies, really, from his time doing the Clone Wars under Lucasfilm, under George Lucas. So, and in some ways that's good because he understands the characters and he's brought in what he knows.
Boons, you probably haven't been as excited, appreciative as the rest of us in our little text chats. What are your thoughts on it so far?
I'd agree with Pete. It's Star Wars, so it's Star Wars first and foremost. So I watch it and I enjoy it. That's important. But that's caveated by the fact that I alone in my house with children of various ages, I was the only one who sat and watched all of Star Wars Resistance all the way through. That's been pretty universally panned. And some of Boba Fett, I wouldn't put a lot above Star Wars Resistance, which is pretty damning. Overall, I'm enjoying the series. One episode in particular and bits of others have really annoyed me, and that's kind of inevitable, I guess. We're getting a lot of Star Wars content. People can't like it all. Some people are going to like stuff, some people not. That's just nature. I'm enjoying it because it's Star Wars, but it's flawed, and as you've already discussed a little bit, it was, to start with, it was on a bit of a losing streak. The Mandalorian is so good. There's little bits with various episodes that people pick over, but as a series, as a character, it was brilliant. And Boba Fett is up against that. Okay, yes, it is part of that same series, but if you've got to look at it from the kind of, I suppose, the non-Uber fan, which we all are. So I've got a number of mates who aren't big Star Wars collectors but enjoy Star Wars content. And I think 3 of them texted me at least by episode 2 saying they're not watching anymore. One after, and I thought episode 1 was pretty good. One after episode 1, God, this is dull. I'm not watching anymore. There's one of them that really likes Mandalorian, so I've been messaging him back saying you need to at least start watching from episodes 5 and 6. Otherwise, you're not going to know what's going on in the next series of Mandalorian, which is actually a bit of a problem with this. If that is the case, unless they do some flashbacks, you shouldn't have to watch every bit of Star Wars to be able to follow. But who knows if that is the case. But yeah, Mandalorian was that good. The Book of Boba Fett needed to be brilliant to compete with it, and it's not. And the other thing, again, you discussed, the Mandalorian has Boba Fett's characteristics. They should have steered clear of Boba Fett for a long time. Have him as a bit part, have him show up, but don't base anything around him. Because, okay, Mandalorian's a little bit inept. Boba Fett's good at what he does, apart from being hit on the back with a stick and falling in the Sarlacc pit. Mandalorian is clearly, he's got his flaws, and that's part of what makes the character different. Good. That's probably why, that's the only bit where he's really different from Boba Fett. And Tamara Morrison is brilliant. I love him. But he's really not that great an actor, and that's been annoying me. Particularly his grimacing when he's fighting. It's sort of his comedy faces, and again, I suppose it sort of links to the fact that they've changed Boba Fett. Boba Fett isn't. He needs to be wearing his helmet. That's the cool, iconic Boba Fett. He's not really Boba Fett, and this is old Boba Fett. He's changed, which I'm fine with. I've really enjoyed the backstory, the flashbacks to the Sand People. Let's go to some positives. Absolutely love that. It's when it went to modern day, the story with the mayor, the Pikes. I'm just not interested. It's just not doing it for me. The big battle be great. I'm sure I'll enjoy it, but that storyline's just not been doing it for me. A lot of the nods, a lot of the reference have been totally taking me out of the Star Wars world. I watch Star Wars. The real world shuts down, phones are put down, I'm immersed in that world. I didn't like the Clash of the Titans monster. People will do, some won't. That wasn't very Star Warsy to me. It's very Harryhausen, but it wasn't Star Wars. It took me out the zone. The scooter chase, there's no point talking about the scooter chase. It was absolutely ridiculous, dire. Wing mirrors, mod parkers. It's too real world. The robot dogs, I can't remember what episode they were in, episode 1 or 2, had some of those eye dogs walking down Mos Eisley High Street. They're in real life. You might as well have someone pedaling a push bike down there. It just took me out of the zone. The mod kids, no threat, they're too clean. It's just there's just too many duff bits. And as if it was a great show, I mean, I was thinking about this one today. So I absolutely loved everything about episode 6. There were silly bits in it. There were bits that if I'd seen them in one of the shows I wasn't enjoying would have really annoyed me. But because the whole show was so good, I sucked it all up. It was all great. I'm sure, you put the mod kids in a different storyline that I'm actually enjoying, they probably wouldn't have annoyed me so much. But these are the things. But essentially, the storyline is, Pete summed it up before. It's a simple storyline. Spaghetti westerns are all about that. I love a spaghetti western. It's 2 hours. You got the bad guys, you got the good guys. There's a fight. The end. But this is it's dragged out a bit. It is a bit dull. But let's end on the positives. Fennec Shand, absolutely brilliant. Mention the Tusken storyline, fantastic. I love the Rancor. But was sort of half and half on the Tusken, but I've come round to thinking I do like the Tusken. I like Boba's relationship with the Tusken. I do like Boba's development as this sort of different person. I'm happy for him to develop. I just don't think there's been much character development in the show. But positive, yeah, I like where Boba's come. I like him being friend of the Sand People. And this sums it up. The best thing about the whole series have been the episodes without Boba Fett in. They've been the Mandalorian episodes. Last week's one, it was great. It was good and interesting. As a standalone one, comparing it to some of the other Mandalorians, probably not one of the best, but in this series, absolutely fantastic. But the Mandalorian's new ship and episode 6, absolutely brilliant. Can't wait till next week.
I'm interested, Andy. Do you think that maybe they kind of got a bit ahead of themselves with, when they had Boba Fett appear because of his armor appeared in Mandalorian? Do you think they just kind of went, the reaction was really amazing, and they kind of maybe put together maybe like a mini film, and then thought, let's make it a series, because it does have a feeling that it's been stretched a lot. It's almost there's like 2 different seasons here. There's what happened to Boba Fett after the Sarlacc pit, which obviously everyone wanted to know. And then this whole Tusken thing where he, becomes a different person. And this kind of weird other thing, this becoming a crime boss for no real reason.
Crime boss sits wrong, doesn't it? 2 minds of this. I think a series of just what happened to Boba Fett with the Tuskens would have been really good. And it's all, you're going to keep repeating yourself. That's a problem with all these episodes. You go to the Clone Wars, you go to Rebels, go to Resistance, Mandalorian. They've all got the scene where they go somewhere, there's some people bullying some villagers, and the hero sorts it out. This is going back to Yojimbo, A Fistful of Dollars. This is an age-old storyline. Seven Samurai, Magnificent Seven, whatever. It's an age-old storyline. It might have got a bit repetitive just doing another series like that. So I can see why they've mixed it up a bit.
Yeah, but I can see. I think that the overarching point of this stuff is, they've been talking about this underworld, the crime bosses and syndicates for a long time. They started to appear in Rebels, they were in Clone Wars a little bit, and it's been like I think George Lucas was talking about this underworld series a long time ago, or animation. I can't exactly remember what format it was. It might have been a game. And it's been bubbling under for a long time. So it's been there in Star Wars, and they've kind of introduced it in this series, but without really introducing it. All they've really done is brought the Pikes in, because we all know about the Hutts and all that sort of stuff, and these Pikes have been around for a few, EU storylines here and there. And it just, they should have called it like Boba Fett and the Underworld or something, or something slightly different. I think they've just got the labeling wrong and the marketing wrong.
It's the speed of it. That you said, about why is he this underworld boss? It's fine for him to be an underworld boss if you build the story so it's logical. There has been absolutely no character development of him in this one. He wakes up on the sand, he's captured by Tuskens, and he's a completely different person. Admittedly, being eaten by a Sarlacc might well change your view on the world, but it just happens instantly.
Well, they did have that conversation, didn't they? They did have a conversation that said, him with Fennec Shand. Maybe that should have been a bit earlier on in the whole thing. Maybe the first episode they should have had that conversation. I just think there's something slightly amiss with the putting together of the episodes. They haven't quite fit together. Having like a 30-minute episode, then almost an hour episode, then another short one. And I just think it just feels that they haven't put together the show quite right in the terms of the storyline. I think the first episode really should have been establishing why Boba Fett now has this thing about being a crime boss. If they had that conversation, which we saw in episode 4 was it, where he says, look, I've really had enough of being someone's, monkey. I want to be doing my own thing and actually, running the show. And that would have made more sense, especially if you had the Tuscan, the Tuscan story where he actually finds a family and he actually feels valued as part of a tribe, and he wants a bit more of that, and he feels that he can lead them, and that makes more sense. You go, okay, so we've established that, and then we go into the crime boss thing. But it's kind of just like assumed, he would have automatically become a crime boss in the first 3 episodes. Well, then it's explained. I just think a little bit of different marketing of the show, branding of the show. Like I said, it should really have had the Mandalorian over the top of it, and then the Book of Boba Fett underneath it, so you actually know what we're in. And it would make more sense. Instead, I think they just need a little bit of tidying up. I don't think it actually needs too much more saying about it. It just needs to be restructured.
That's fair enough, actually. If this was badged as the Mandalorian, I and imagine a lot of other people would be okay with the odd duff episode. But you just think, oh wow, series 3 of the Mandalorian's not as good as the other ones, but I'm really enjoying how it ends. It is
Mandalorian 2.5, because I said it was introduced. The show was introduced in the Mandalorian. It was at the end. Yeah. It was deliberately so done in that end credit scene. Although I still find that whole thing with shooting poor old Bib Fortuna without explaining why, in a trailer at the end of a show, a little bit cheeky. They really should. That should have been the first scene in the whole show. Where he's done that, and you go, okay, why has he done that for?
Well, then we're going to find out, though, aren't we? Because he keeps saying how he said how.
I don't know, are we?
Bib Fortuna crossed him. I'm sure we will.
Well, it just seems to put that in there. I think that's all we're going to get. He's crossed him. Well, yeah, that's what they do, these naughty people. But I mean, there's a lot of stuff to be resolved in the final episode. I can't see him doing a season 2 of this. It's surely got to be resolved, and then this storyline will be picked up in another.
I don't think they'll do a season 2 because it isn't universally popular. I think Disney are very sensitive to that, aren't they? Everyone didn't like Solo film. No more films.
It is, but they've got to do something, because otherwise, they've created this whole world with the crime syndicates. It's got to go somewhere.
Yeah. Let's move this on a little bit. So Andy Preston, Pete and Spoons both brought up some interesting points there, in particular with regards to Boba Fett and going back to Jedi. Now, to me, it's logical that I had to go back to Jedi. It's the big time period where everybody's wondering what on earth has gone on now with the EU being, sidelined. Now, do you think it's possible that they could have gone back to Jedi and started all that without having Boba Fett? For how long would people be, years and years and years, they'd be going, what's happened with Fett? What's happened with Fett? Did they have no choice but to bring back Fett?
Well, he's such a popular character, isn't he? It's a no-brainer to do a series with Fett. I tend to agree with the others. It's just a little bit odd how it's been handled. I mean, let's get it out of the way. It's not as good as Mando. But having said that, it's a very enjoyable series. I have watched and thoroughly enjoyed every episode. I can really buy the idea of an older, battered, world-weary Boba Fett, been let down too many times by his employers, and wanting to do something different, to be the boss for a change. So I get that. I loved the bit with the Sand People. The attack on the train in the second episode, that was fantastic. Really, really good episode, that one. Otherwise, the general plot with Boba Fett has just moved along a little bit too slowly for my liking. And he's gathering his troops together. He's got the mod gang. He's got Black Chrysanthemum, who I think is a great character. I love the Wookiee pulling people's arms out of their sockets. He's rounded up Mando. He's got the villagers potentially coming in, but that's pretty much all the series has been about, and it's not really given Boba himself enough of an arc or enough to sort of move the story on a pace. And it's really showed in the last 2 episodes, when we've gone away from Boba and into Mando, we've continued that story, that's really been shown up. We're all so invested with Mando and Grogu and their story that it was a real breath of fresh air to see them coming back in. But as I say, I think it's a shame really that they've gone that way, and that Boba Fett hasn't had better service in terms of the overall story arc in this series. There's a hell of a lot that they've left unexplored. I don't know how long episode 7 is going to be. It's going to need to be about 2 hours in order to tie up all these loose ends. Again, I hope it's not going to be the Mando and Grogu show. I hope Fett really does get a chance to shine in episode 7. But, where are they going to go with the Hutt? Are the Tuscans going to come back into it and be avenged? Is that going to be resolved? What is going to happen to Grogu? Cad Bane, where's he fitting in now? Lovely to see Cad Bane in there, but there is just so much going on now that I can't see how they're going to wrap it up. Anyway, be interesting to find out. Plus points again, it does really feel like Star Wars. Lovely original trilogy vibe to it. It's great to see the use of a lot of practical effects, a lot of masks, a lot of original trilogy aliens showing up. Little nods to Ralph McQuarrie, little nods back to the original movies, back even to the prequels, as we've said. I love Mando's new starship. Great to see Fixer and Cammy in one of those earlier episodes. That was a nice little Easter egg there. So it's a good series. If we hadn't been so spoiled by Mando, I think we'd be saying it's fantastic. As it is, it's enjoyable. It's not quite there up with the best. But hey, it's Star Wars, and you don't have to go back many years to have thought that there wasn't ever going to be any new Star Wars. So and anything we get, as long as it's reasonable quality, which this certainly is, got to be a good thing in my book.
Absolutely, totally agree. And with all those who stick with it over the years, I mean, the amount of people who pawned the Zon novels, or the amount of people who pawned the using Wrong Invasion and things like that. Many of us enjoyed those stories. And yes, there were some terrible ones, but overall, they were very, very popular sellers. So plenty of people enjoyed them. Keep it going, see how it goes. I am slightly more worried than I was about the Cassian Endor show now. I think that one's going to be a really, really tough sell. But no, let's see how they go with it. I'll give it a chance. I think we could be
surprised at that, Rich. I think on the Cassian Andor show, because it's obviously going to be set just before Rogue One, or before Rogue One, so it's going to be in that original trilogy kind of time frame. So I think it's one of those shows where no one's expecting anything from it, so it can't. I mean, unless it does something really stupid, it can't. I don't think it can really lose, because again, as long as you have a lot of vintage nods in there and original trilogy nods, you're halfway there, really. I mean, all you got to tell a story of a bloke who's a freedom fighter. I mean, it's all been written. The story's written for you. So you don't really have to do a great deal, do you? You just have to have the start of the rebellion, and Mon Mothma in there, all those sort of characters of that, get Akbar in there as well, and you're halfway there.
Maybe this is where we'll see Kiva make a reappearance. Who knows?
Yeah.
All right.
I think Kenobi will be the challenge. That'll be the challenge. From the rumours we've heard, that's going to be a challenging show to really win people over, because obviously we know that story. So, and they're going to put more things in there.
Absolutely.
Hello there. You may remember me from The Empire Strikes Back. Now, don't forget to hit subscribe and also click the bell for notifications.